Hello folks, my name is Hypocrisite and welcome to yet another episode of HOI4 TNO as Samara. In the previous episode we've managed to conquer Komi, the Komi Republic, and we will go with probably this whole WRF path of the focus tree will be bypassed, and we will we will end here, and then we'll go with the last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 focuses to unlock the new tree. So yeah, so the way has been shown. So let's go with piecing coming together. Oh, I will have some more pluralism in the pie chart. I have no idea who Alexei Yudenich is, but we'll see what the hell is going on here. It is said amongst the ROA High Command that in order to learn the ins and outs of the Komi political landscape, one would have to take an 8-year specialized and rigorous course on the best of universities from dozens of professors. Unfortunately, we have found ourselves in control of Komi in a number of weeks, leaving us no choice but to improvise. And improvise we will. By creating a list of politicians amicable to our rule, we will be able to create a basic friendly government from which we can expand our control and gain knowledge about the other factions native to the region. Hopefully we can stabilize our control of Komi enough to the point that we can begin to establish democratic processes similar to the rest of the Republic in the state. Cool. Okay. Sverdlovsk unifies West Siberia. That's not good. Okay, so now with Komi pieced together, let's go with the Western finale. Ever since we crushed the remnants of the Soviet Union a decade ago, we have dedicated our time in surviving the hostile environment of Western Russia, growing our power in the region to become a credible candidate to unify the country. The West Russian Revolutionary Front, as it turns out, was not as defeated as it appeared. Our old nemesis, headquartered in Arkhangelsk, is once again poised to threaten the freedom of every Russian man, woman and child. This time we will not fail to grind them to dust. We actually have ground them. Oh yeah, and I've realized that we can create the Provisional Commissariat of Western Russia. A new focus tree shall become available upon the resolution of the Onega issue. So we have to go with the Finnish Puppets, and we'll be able to go with the next focus tree. So let's click it. Samara unifies West Russia. A communique detailing the birth of the Provisional Commissariat of Western Russia has reached many news agencies around the world by unknown means. This strange missive details the rise of a new democracy in Western Russia, hymned by former collaborator Andrei Vlasov and his protege Miletizikov. Widely loathed in Russia for their support of the Germans during the West Russian War, the Russian Liberation Army has always claimed its status as the embryo of a legitimate Russian state free from Bolshevik influence. Disappearing into the anarchy after the war, the ROA's reappearance today has been quite a shock for Russian observers. The new nation's long-term prospects remain uncertain. A democracy imposed at gunpoint. And now 1, 2, 3. So 3 focuses were bypassed. Let's go with freedom of expression. Replace state persona with censored press. Well, it's a start. The neo-Soviet state in the Arctic was cold and callous to its people, denying them democratic rights and curtailing their ability to speak freely against its abuses. Now that we have seized Arkhangelsk, we can return these essential freedoms to them. Everyone will be able to speak and express themselves as they please with no restrictions other than against the radicalism that took these rights away in the first place. Alright. Alright, so now with having jumped into the regional stage, we have the regional development screen, and we can do a lot of things. So let's go with the new mechanic, which is the overextended administration, which we will be able to decrease or mitigate its effects by doing the focuses from the next focus tree. And now we can go with a lot of different things. We can invest money from the GDP to develop our country. So, but let's go with encouraging the political thought, and then we will see. Okay, so now we have the freedom of expression. Let's go with freedom of religion. The West Russian Revolutionary Front, in a foolish attempt at societal progress, placed severe restrictions on the Orthodox faith, the heart of our society. It substituted godless materialism for religious and democratic freedoms, making the Russian people poorer spiritually as well as economically. Once again, every person will be able to practice their faith however they see fit, and we will leave the tyrannical imposition of atheism on our society behind. We will replace pluralism is the freedom of religion, and secularism, there is no religion at all. I mean, it's kind of stupid. It should be the other way around. But yeah, well, whatever. Maybe I am the stupid now. Okay, so we have the freedom of religion, and now let's go with what freedom? Freedom for all. In its efforts to flatten the differences between social classes, the West Russian Revolutionary Front flattened the rights of the people. An oppressive totalitarian state forced its revolutionary agenda down its citizens' throats and denied them the power to speak out against it or change their government for the better. Now that the ROA has exorcised the spectre of communism, this oppression is no more. The Russian people will be the freest they have ever been, with the right to control their own future firmly in their hands. Long live democracy. Long live freedom for Russia. This will slightly decrease calling time, and our poverty rate will begin to improve. That's good, because it's been going down a lot. And with freedom for all, let's go with the Finnish Puppets. Well, why? Can I bypass it? I mean, well, okay. Okay, so let's go with the Finnish Puppets. In Onega, Russian men have been conscripted by the Finns to serve as barrier troops between Finland and the rest of the WRRF. All this to defend land that Helsinki stole from us Russians. With the front now in ruins, perhaps the Finns would be willing to release the Onegans from their servitude and return our land. Of course, were the negotiations to fail, there is always the military option. Finland has a strong modern army, but it is small, and our generals believe that the Finns will fold if they lose sufficient amounts of ground. Okay, so let's see what's their opinion on the matter, but... Okay, so they'll get the conference. Before that, we will do the Western warlords subdue. It has been done. Western Russia is united once again. Thanks to the valiant men of the ROA and the sacrifices of our civilian population. Widespread celebrations have begun across our nation as men and women celebrate peace for the first time in decades. Chairman Vlasov is expected to give a speech celebrating our victory. In particular, Voice of the People and Deputy Chairman Zykov is expected to receive his share of the glory for spearheading the reforms that brought us here. Of course, many obstacles remain on our path to unification. Many communists and terrorists still plot against us, and reports are reaching us of unification in Central and Eastern Russia. But as long as Chairman Vlasov and Deputy Chairman Zykov are there, the ROA shall march to eternal glory. We'll get base war support minus 25%, that's a lot. The Vipuli Conference. War has been averted between Finland and Provisional Commissariat of Western Russia, as diplomats from both nations have successfully signed an accord in Vipuli. Having occupied Karelia since the collapse of the Soviet Union, the rise of a new Russian government outside of RK Moscovian has long been a strategic concern for Helsinki. Adding to the tensions was the presence of Finnish aligned anti-communist militias in Onega. Fortunately, the government of Western Russia has preferred a diplomatic solution to the Karelian and Onegan issues. With many rivals beyond the Urals for control of a resurgent Russia, it seems that the government of Provisional Commissariat of Western Russia has sought to rapidly end the Finnish question on agreeable terms. The Finns are somewhat receptive to talks. Our ambassador informs us that Helsinki has agreed to a high-level diplomatic conference between our two nations. It is pleasing that the Finns have not done anything rash and have agreed to at least give us some time to make demands. Some cynics in our government suspect Helsinki of merely stalling for time to order a full mobilization. The fact remains that war can be avoided. Before anything else, however, Helsinki wants to know our terms. Onega must be returned to us, its population freed from their janissary duty for Finland. That much is essential. This does not mean, however, that the Vlasov Finnish frontier should remain a dagger pointed at Finland's heart. We could simply demilitarize Onega and sign a non-aggression pact for the foreseeable future. The Finns would probably accept such a deal, and Helsinki would likely see it too good to be true. Thus, a better deal would be the return of Onega in full, with our troops in the region. Eastern Karelia will also be integrated to Russia as an autonomous region, with the Finns granted an open border into the region. This would return to us the Arctic port of Murmansk. Southwestern Karelia and its critical city of Vyborg, or Vipuli in Finnish, would stay under Helsinki's control. Demilitarized zones and non-aggression treaties will follow, preventing any future war between our peoples. Of course, we could just demand it all, no matter how attached the Finns are to Vyborg and southern Western Karelia. Their paltry army cannot save them for long. Onega's ramshackle mob of conscripts will not slow us long if they choose to fight their countrymen at all. The Finns will agree to demands for Onega and all of Karelia, or pay for their arrogance. Basically, we may ask only for Onega, or we may ask for the Karelia. Or we may ask for all the Karelia and Vipuli. I think well, we play as the good guys here, or at least I want to roleplay it as the good guys, so maybe let's just ask for the majority territories and we'll see what will happen next. The office of Andreyevich Vlasov was incredibly barren. He had intentionally ordered the removal of most luxuries from his office and his living quarters 2 years prior in a vain attempt to stave off his ever-present guilt. The old marshal stood, looking out the window, a drink in hand. He couldn't remember the time. All he knew was that it was dark out. Midnight, maybe. 1, 2. Who cared? The night was the only time that Vlasov could be alone. Every waking hour of the day he had aides, officers, and administrators asking him the most mundane of questions, but lately he had become disinterested in answering them, instead preoccupying himself with a reflection on his life's work. What was it if not the committee? And what had they accomplished? At what cost? These were the questions that resounded in Vlasov's head day and night. And for the life of me, I can't figure out the answers, he mumbled to himself. He couldn't even remember if his alliance with the Nazis was one of pragmatic survival or the desire to see a Russia forged in his image. He barely had an image anymore. He continued to pace around his room, occasionally glancing up to the stoic portrait of himself that his aides insisted he keep in his office. A single word came to his mind: legacy. What was to be his legacy? Vlasov had always thought about writing a book. After all, who else would tell his story the way that it should be told? The Germans remember me as a traitor. The Russians remember me as worse. Those in the West barely know who I am, he stated to no one in particular. Realistically, no book would be coming. Vlasov knew he couldn't. After pacing some more, he sat, slumped in his desk chair, looking at his drink. It has become harder to resist the urges to refill the glass over and over with the premium vodka he had liberated from himself. He looked into his glass. It was now empty. When did he drink it? He couldn't remember. Glancing toward his desk, there were 2 items that came to his attention: the bottle and his service pistol. A brief idea crossed his mind, but common sense got the better of him. He decided to retire for the night, after a long, deep sigh. The curtain draws closer to the chairman's career. Maybe Vlasov will die soon. The backup demand. The Finnish negotiators have pushed back on our demands for Eastern Karelia. They claim that they cannot let vast amount of territories be transferred, lest they betray thousands of Finnish citizens. The fact that this land was ours before 1936 has not gotten our negotiators anywhere. Helsinki's diplomats have wryly commented that the 1936 borders must not have been satisfactory to the Soviet Union, as it attempted to invade Finland to correct them. Despite several attempts to reassure the Finns that we are not the successors of the Soviet Union, their negotiators have stayed on their position. It might still be possible to scale back our demands to return of Onega, sweetened by offers of a demilitarized zone and non-aggression treaty. On the other hand, our generals have remained on standby for a different type of negotiations. Perhaps it is time to make a more convincing argument for Eastern Karelia by force of arms. So yeah, historically, Karelia was quote-unquote Russian only because the Novgorodian Republic sided with Sweden to conquer the Finland. Historically. And after that, it was all, between Sweden and Russia. So, yeah, well, let's go with Onega. I don't want any fighting with Finnish because it's a pain in the ass to get rid of them. The Viipuri Concordat. The Finnish government has agreed to our proposals. Onega will be returned to Russia and its land demilitarized. Our soldiers on the Onegan border have begun celebrating upon hearing the news. Vast bouts of drinking, dancing, and singing have been organized in the no man's land along the border, with the newly liberated Onegan militias joining in to celebrate the rebirth of Russia with their brothers to the east. Finnish Forward Units on the border have mostly retained their positions, but a few have been lured over to the celebrations. Their presence has not been accepted everywhere, but the majority of our soldiers have welcomed their Finnish counterparts. In an era of war and strife unending, peace and friendship deserve celebrations by soldiers weary of fighting. What? Betrayal? Betrayal? Did I catch it correctly? Onega returned. The Finns have at least seen reason to the Onegan issue. They've released our Russian brothers from their bonds and have agreed to evacuate Onega. In exchange, Helsinki expects a non-aggression pact as well as the militarization of Onega. To prove our intentions, only limited military police have moved into the new Onega district, while our diplomats in Viborg have remained in Finland to hash out the terms of this new treaty. Our soldiers in the field drink and celebrate. They are joined by many Onegans and quite a few Finns. There will be peace between our nations, no matter what else the future brings to our people. Peace, a dream so fragile. Alright, so now with Onega on our side, let's address the Ural question, because we will be able to unify Urals, or at least do something about them. But we'll have to. But we'll be able to do it only after we resolve our political stuff. So yeah. Oh. F's in the chat, boys. Very, very F's in the chat, boys. That's not a side that I wanted to see, but what I could expect of Göring. Okay, so now we have blank focus. Andrei Vlasov stopped being a field marshal, blah blah blah. Andrei Vlasov dies. Mileti Zykov becomes leader for the authoritarian democracy party. Well, that's the man. Placeholder. Vlasov dead. Regional begins. Placeholder. Welp. Fix this shit. This will decrease civilian morale by a very large amount. Oh, damn, boy. That's not good. That's not good at all. Okay, so civilian morale is high and military is average. Well, that's not so bad, I think. Okay, so we have a huge focus tree. I mean, huge in the horizontal axis. The only thing we can do is go with death of Vlasov, so let's go with it. Chairman Vlasov has died. Funerals are being prepared in the capital, and a national week of mourning had been declared throughout the nation. Even more important, however, is to assure the stability and orderliness of the transition. Our army, despite its triumph throughout Western Russia, is badly overstretched. Vast amounts of territory are being managed by officers of dubious loyalty to the new chairman. Even more disquieting are the rumors of revolts against our rule. Communist remnants, ethnic nationalists, and other agitators are suspected of moving weapons around in preparation. We must be vigilant. Das Großgermanische Reich der Deutschen Nation has placed its vice-like grip back on rząd tymczasowy Rzeczypospolitej Polskiej after they daringly escaped. Though the men and women of the Polish homeland fought with everything they had, Poland is lost. Perhaps this time forever. Okay, so death of Vlasov is a fact. Friends and enemies. Our suspicions were correct. The rabble is rising up against our rule in several sectors, claiming that our authority is non-legitimate. Only a strong communication blackout has managed to prevent the spread of civil disturbances to our biggest cities. This setback risks turning into a catastrophe as several ROA units are mutinying against the new chairman. Contradictory reports that the soldiers are simply asking for better pay and for an end to the wartime discipline, or that they refuse to serve the new chairman, make it difficult to ascertain the scale of the problem. We must act quickly. A contingency plan to secure the capital must be put into effect. Traitors must be rooted out rapidly. Friend and enemies. Chairman, the reports are much worse than we feared. Several villages and towns previously under communist control have risen up in revolt against ROA. There is also tension brewing in ethnic minorities areas, with many locals seeking the death of Vlasov as a signal of internal weaknesses within our government. This angry rabble may be more correct than it suspects, as our military position is falling in many districts. The death of Commander Vlasov has sparked a storm of rumors that has now descended upon both our soldiers and our officers. Some units refuse our orders, claiming that your position as chairman is illegitimate. Other garrisons have simply gone silent, failing to reply to our transmissions. All hope has not yet lost, Chairman. It is likely that much of the confusion within our ranks can be dispelled by loyalist units. We can address the troops' discontent with minor reforms such as increased pay or longer permissions now that the wars of unification... What? Of unification villages. Okay, so... of unification are complete. As to the remaining mutineers, they will be crushed, and their sponsors will be smoked out. We will make sense of this situation. We must act quickly. This will decrease civilian morale and military morale by a large amount. Fuck. And goddamn. By the people. Chairman Zykov has long suspected treachery from corrupt insiders of the ROA. Now we must help launch a counter-coup. Loyal ROA units are moving against anti-democratic officers in several of our cities. Meanwhile, loyal citizen militias are monitoring movements across the major roads. Paralyzed and unable to contact one another, the mutinous garrisons are expected to fold one by one. Okay, so I thought that this will be some sort of a, civil war, like in-game, but it's only a question of a few events, so alright. By the people. For are we all not brothers, struggling together for unification? Have we not fought, shoulder to shoulder, side by side, in the trenches for years? If we lay down our guns now, our movement will be saved, and no one will be hurt. Our enemies won't be able to take advantage of the internal divisions that they have been encouraging for months. Remember, struggle not against your family, but against those who threaten it. Today, Zykov took to the air to announce the end of the mutinies and to encourage those still in arms to give up, offering amnesty to all those who were not involved in instigating the mutiny. The path to end the mutiny and prevent all-out explosion of the ROA into civil war was engineered masterfully by the veteran propagandist, who seemed to exhibit perfectly the tenets that Machiavelli wrote about centuries ago. Zykov had bribed those who could be bought, talked down those who could be talked, and threatened violence upon those who would do neither. The combination worked, if just barely. Armed confrontation was reserved to a few hardcore mutineers, who utterly refused surrender. All of these facts, and the immense amount of relief given by them, was swirling around the heads of the committees, which Zykov stood in front of. The enigmatic orator had already given a cursory briefing to the committee about the situation, and the fallout. However, his coup de grace was not yet to come. As I'm sure all of you are aware, it was the perfidious Mikhail Oktan, who organized this mutiny against the authority of our dear chairman. Actually, for most, that was a surprise. The truth of this situation was that Oktan had nothing to do with the revolt, but Zykov knew an opportunity when he saw one. Indeed, it's clear, at least to me, that we can no longer tolerate such a rat-like insubordinate in our ranks, no matter how entrenched he may be. Zykov looked around his room, his cool, calculating gaze analyzing such command member. Not such. He was confident in their vote. One by one, each consented to Oktan's arrest. Very well. If this is the will of the committee and our dear chairman, I will order the arrest of Mikhail Oktan and his subsequent trial. Oktan would not get a trial. After his arrest, during which he made no small protest, he was taken to a small barn near the outskirts of Samara and given a sentencing, ultimately being shot. His body was burned, and that was the end of Mikhail Oktan. Execute the guilty, spare the innocent. Well, actually, I thought that he will stay quite longer. For the people. The soldiers have backed down, leaving their officers to their fate. This leaves the matter of the civilian resistance. We have been accused by our opponents of being soft, sentimental types, and that Chairman Zykov would merely abdicate all power to the masses. Nothing is further from the truth. If Russia is to become strong and free, no one must be able to dictate her actions. An ultimatum has been sent to the rebels. Those who do not stand down will see the wrath of the ROA. We hope that they survive it long enough to understand the error of their ways. For the people. Outside of a small village, or about a 2.5-hour drive from the city of Samara, lay in a pile roughly 30 dead bodies. Well over half of them were wearing the ROA's uniform, while the other few dead were clearly partisans. The confrontation between the partisans and the local patrol had happened when they had done a routine inspection of the village and discovered weapon caches, the partisans hiding in plain sight. The firefight that ensued saw all of the partisans killed, but most of the patrol as well. The dead ROA, which featured kids as young as 16, was sorted into one pile with another for the dead partisans, mostly young men and women. Vlasov, who was shocked to hear that there was such a coherent piece of communist resistance so close to the capital, drove out himself to see the after... Wait, what? Vlasov is dead! What the fuck? Accompanied by two of his bodyguards, maybe it was Zykov, not Vlasov. He examined the carnage after having ordered the surviving patrol members not to exact revenge on the surviving villagers. One of the bodyguards, Bielochkin, was a personal confidant of the old general. He could tell that, for the first time in a long time, Vlasov was filled with emotion, and none of it was good. His mouth formed into a tight-lipped grimace as he walked through the village. An explosion of anger, unable to be contained, eventually brought the usually laconic general into a yelling fit, shouting at the pile of dead partisans. "Who are you to think that you could do what you tried to do?" he asked, and then paused. Was he waiting for a response? "I have worked years, no, decades, to bring about a Russia free from communism, free from tyranny, and you, all you people who so stubbornly resisted my efforts, indoctrinated by the bastards I beat years ago, waste the lives of brave young men who fight my good fight." Bielochkin was stunned. He looked around, villager and soldier alike frozen, observing the marshal's outburst. Glancing towards his fellow bodyguard, he slowly approached Vlasov, who had since fallen silent. Careful not to touch him, Bielochkin quietly whispered in his ear, "Perhaps, my chairman, it is time for us to go. I am sure you were needed back in Samara." Vlasov weakly agreed. The drive back to the capital was a very quiet one. A last bit of passion from the tired old man. But Vlasov is dead. Who wrote those events? Or maybe, who arranged those events? So, did he get up from his grave or something? The ROA fights on. It was a near-run thing at the time. but we've beat back the opposition. The aftermath is not pretty. Plenty of soldiers are dismayed to know their comrades took up arms against the state. Former mutineers that have received pardons still eye our authority with contempt. And out there in the provinces, many civilians are just now understanding that our government came very close to being toppled. More resistance can be expected in the future, from both disgruntled ROA soldiers and officers, as well as civilians who loathe our government. No matter what, however, the ROA fights on, strong and unbroken. Alone on evening watch. Nikolai's patrol circled back to the campfire. Little remained of it by this time of the day. Points of lights, soft in the evening's dusk. One of the other soldiers had put some potatoes to roast by the embers before going to sleep. The fighting had come and gone so rapidly, a startling nightmare after months of campaign, soon dispelled once the High Command had woken up to the chaos. Now mutinous soldiers and rebellious civilians alike had been dealt with. Discontent was once more forced to lurk in the shadow. The soldier sat by the ashes and picked up one of the potatoes, still warm to the touch. Nikolai was grateful for the attention of his comrades. He ate in silence, rifle on his lap. Out in the valley below, most lights blinked out for the night. Electricity was still a rarity, and candles an important necessity in now peaceful Russia. Perhaps peace would bring more light. The soldier picked up the other potato and stood up. The embers glowered at him. So easily could the fire begin anew. Nikolai kicked dirt over them and began to make his way to the barracks. Hopefully, no more revolt will ignite. This will increase civilian morale and military morale, and we now have both high morales. So, this is the end of the episode, and I hope that you've liked it. In the next one, we'll go with... I have no idea. Probably with this one, because it will reduce the administrative strain and we will get rid of the overextended administration. I hope that you've liked the episode, as I've said. And be sure to leave a like, a comment, and to subscribe to my channel if you want to see more of the Hearts of Iron 4 Samara content. See ya.